Okay, so we're going to look at our beginning lesson in critical path analysis. And again, this is just an introduction. We'll watch the full introduction, and then we'll go back and think about some things. So you might want to jot down to see if you hear some things that we might need, and then we'll go back together and organize what we need, and then I have a few clarifications to go. Okay, so again, these modules are all on the class that we created, so make sure that you go on and accept that. And hopefully this is all set up okay so you can hear.
Hi there, everyone, and welcome to Mathematics 3.4 Critical Path Analysis. This stands about using critical path analysis in solving problems. And the point of this video is just to tell you a little bit about how we assess the standard, what critical path analysis actually is, and how much it works, so you can have a good idea of whether this is the type of standard you would like to do. Just for clarification, this is a level 3 calculus standard. So what is critical path analysis? Well, critical path analysis is all about getting large jobs done as fast as possible. So think things like project managing. So if you're managing, for example, a sports event, an art gallery exhibit, or anything like that, or a big construction project, any large job, critical path analysis is a key thing for it. In critical path analysis, your job is to use mathematics to work out how to complete the job as fast as possible. And think of it like an assembly line. On the assembly line, different jobs take different amounts of time. And so if you want to be as efficient as possible, you have to work out which jobs take the longest and what jobs have to be done in what order to create the product the fastest. So it does.
Okay, so let's just talk a little bit about what he's saying. So critical path analysis is about getting a big job with lots of parts done as quickly as possible. Okay? Now, the one issue that I've been warned about is that students often find it difficult to realize that the shortest amount of time is the critical path. The shortest possible time is the critical path. So think about that as we go. So we want to work out how to complete the job as fast as possible. So we want the shortest number of hours or days or whatever that we can do to complete the job. Now, but that means that we're going to have criteria that we follow. So a good example is, let's say that these three guys are going to have to run an errand before we can all leave to go for a class trip. Yeah? And it's going to take her, I'm not going to name any names because I'm on the recording. So it's going to take you 30 minutes to run your errand. It's going to take you an hour, and it's going to take you 15 minutes, right? But we can't leave until everybody's here. Well, that means the minimum amount of time we have to wait is her 1 hour, right? So it's the shortest possible time, right? Not the one with the shortest time. Do you understand the difference between that? So if there are 3 things that have to get done and one of them takes longer, then you're going to have to take at least that long to get it done. So keep that in mind as we go. We want the job done as fast as possible, but we have to take into account how long it takes each piece to get done. Okay? All right. So let's continue his little introduction.
Have a lot of relevance to real life. So why is critical path analysis important? Well, in many industries, you'll be faced with large tasks. Like I've just described, the construction industry is a big one. So is project management of both sports events, cultural events, musical events. And people who know how to work out how to organize those tasks tend to be the ones who get put in charge of those projects. So if you are interested in anything like project management, or even just want to know how you would design a large project, then this is the type of standard that will be very important. Like I said here, it's very useful for construction projects, for big business initiatives, and for project management. You don't want to be the one constantly having to announce delays to things because you didn't do critical path analysis properly. Now there are 3 parts to this standard. The first part is watching the videos, and the video is going to teach you everything you need to know about critical path analysis. The second thing is to do the practice. So we have a whole bunch of practice questions along with hint videos and a mock exam. So if you can do the practice after that, you'll be very well prepared. And finally, you need to sit the test. So this is a test-based internal, and you have 1 hour to sit a test. So the rules for the assessment, it is a test, so it's set under exam conditions and is 1 hour long. This means no phones, this means no web pages allowed to be opened, and this means no talking to your friends and no help. It's just you and the test. And we do have ways of monitoring whether you're opening other web pages or talking to other people while doing the test, so please don't try and do that, or we will be forced to give you a not achieved, even if you are just checking Facebook. You can watch videos and you can practice questions as much as you want. However, when the test starts, you are not allowed to view them. So there's a whole bunch of different ways you can take this internal. You can do all the videos really quick, then move on to all the practice questions, and then sit the examination straight away. Alternatively, you can watch the videos, take a few day break, do all the practice questions, take another break, and then sit the internal. You can do whatever you want, and you can watch the videos and do the practice questions as many times as you want. However, when you press the orange button that says start this internal assessment, you are not allowed to view any other materials.
We'll be taking it on paper in class, not online.
So you can choose when to sit the assessment. There is no time limit on that. However, once you start it, you have 1 hour to finish it. So how much is this worth? Which is something that people often want to know. Well, this standard is quite a good one because it is worth 2 credits at level 3 calculus. And in my opinion, it is the easiest of the calculus standards in the entire calculus course. The standard does count towards completing NCA level 3, which you can see at the top here under university entrance requirement. The standard does count towards 10 numeracy credits. So cheers for listening, guys. Hopefully now you have a good understanding of what this internal is all about, and you can decide if this is the type of internal you would like to sit. Cheers for listening, guys, and I hope to see you in the next few videos.
Very dramatic music. So as you watch the videos, make sure you watch out for unfamiliar terms and jot them down. We'll make sure that we have good, strong definitions of all the terms as we go. So sometimes I'll stop the video in the middle and we'll take a few notes. Sometimes we'll go on and we may need to clarify some things at the end, but just to make sure everybody's on the same page and has the same idea. Okay? Can you understand him all right? Yeah? Okay, well, I can't, but that's okay. So, right? So we're gonna go ahead and watch the first video. They can watch the recording to catch up because we still have plenty of time and it just seems a shame to waste the class. So we're going to start first by creating what's called a network diagram. So you're going to be given a scenario, and I've already posted on OneNote one of the practice exams, which is an old NCEA exam. And we're going to use that as our homework, because that way you'll practice exactly what you're going to need to be doing. Now you will see that I've also posted some answers, and the critical path that the teacher who made those answers was using a very simplified version. And then, so in other words, we're doing it in a slightly different way than you're going to see on the video. I think the way in the video is better, and that's because each piece of information, everything you need is right there on your diagram, so you can simply refer back to it instead of going back to any other tables or charts or anything that you've made, right? And that's just my opinion. If you want to use the format that they've used on the answers, that is perfectly fine, right? There is no right or wrong way to write that down as long as you get the right answers. But again, in my opinion, it's safer to have everything in the chart right where I need it. But again, it's up to you. Okay? All right. So let's begin the creating a network diagram video.
Welcome to this video on creating a network diagram. When you go to do your assessment, if you scroll down, you'll find a task. In this task are a list of all the different things you need to do in order to pass your internal at achieved merit and excellence level. In this video, we'll be focusing on the first bullet point, asking us to include a network diagram showing the tasks in the project. To do that, we need to scroll down a little further to find a resource table, which will also be in your assessment. This resource table lists a bunch of different tasks, their names, their duration, and other tasks that they must be proceeded by. To make a network diagram, we just have to focus on the first, third, and fourth columns. In a network diagram, each task is represented by a box with 6 smaller boxes inside it. The 2 boxes on the left and right hand sides are used for a merit level skill, so we don't need to worry about them today. Our first step to making a network diagram is to fill in the task and duration. It's as simple as putting the task in the top box and the duration in the bottom box.
There you go. There's your first step. So it should be in your notes. So step 1, write in the task and the duration. And when you're writing in the task, notice it doesn't describe the task, it just gives it a letter. So in the top you would put A and the duration, in this case the number of hours, so it would be 4. Right? So don't be looking for a description of it. We're not worried about design a new bathroom. You just use the task A thing. So don't try to put all that description in there. Okay? Give you a minute. Just tell me when you're ready. So when you take the exam, you're going to get a big list like this, and you're going to see in a moment he's going to show you the rest of the list. It's a big list with lots of tasks and lots of things. The thing that you need to watch for, especially, is this box. Must be preceded by. What does preceded mean? Yeah, so these tasks, right, have to be in front of it. So be careful when you're watching about them. So one task has to be completed before that one can begin. Okay? So watch out for those preceded by. This is a fake one he's done. It doesn't have anything to do with your task, but you'll see in a moment what that looks like. Okay? So let's move on.
If we look down at our resource table, we'll see that it's task A, so we replace task with A, and our duration is 4 hours, so we put a 4 in there.
Getting louder.
Our second step is to add arrows to display what task depends on what. Again, if you look down at your resource table, you'll see that task A must be preceded by tasks X and Y. Now, we don't have boxes for tasks X and Y, but if we did, we'd have a box here with an arrow pointing from task X to task A, and for task Y, we'd have a box here with an arrow pointing from it to task A as well. Notice that the arrows are pointing from tasks X and Y to task A, not in the other direction. And those are the 2 steps for creating a network diagram.
Okay, so let's talk about those arrows for just a moment. So these things have to be completed before this one can start. And these two are individual tasks, yes? So you notice that they got their own set of 6 boxes, right? There's the X one and there's the Y one. And you didn't have this information from what he gave you, but he's pulling from a whole chart, right? So don't think that you should be seeing that 1 and 2 that don't exist in the information you were given. But notice that since they're independent events that have to precede task A, they each got their own box. And because task A is connected to them or preceded by them, they're connected by an arrow. But the arrow only goes in the direction of A, because completing A doesn't have anything to do with completing Y, because Y is already done, right? So these arrows will only ever flow in one direction. And that's important when you're building your diagram, that you don't put double-sided arrows on there. That's wrong, so be careful. They're only the ones that precede it will lead to the next one. Now notice in this case, these 2 independent events both went to the same box. Right? Or, in some cases, they could go off to different boxes. Right? So you can have more than one arrow coming from a task. You just have to pay close attention to these preceded by sections. Okay? So you should write step 2, add arrows to display what task depends on what, and any clarification that you might need for that for yourself, right? Because you can always change the notes to suit your own needs. Okay, let's continue.
In your assessment, your resource table will look something like this. Now, it's a lot of information and a long list of tasks, but all we have to do is apply the 2 steps that we just learned to each task in this resource table. So, we'll start off with our first task, task A, with the duration of 4 hours, and where it says must be preceded by, it has a dash. That just means that it's not preceded by anything, so you don't need to add any arrows going into task A. So, put a box here with an A in it and a 4 in it. Next, we have task B, with a duration of 3 hours, and again,
Okay, again, I'm sorry, just going to stop in for a second. So do you see that no arrows go there because it wasn't preceded by anything? This is task B, but it's also not preceded by anything. So that means those are kind of like the start boxes. And he's going to put them in a funny way. If I was going to do this, I would be very, very precise about the locations. Stack the ones that are, you don't have to. You're going to see he doesn't. But when you're looking at these, remember that you need to stay, the key here is to stay as organized as you can. Stay focused and organized. Okay? Go. Sorry, I'll try to interrupt less.
It's not preceded by anything, so we just need to do the first step. So we'll put a box here with a B and a 3 in it. Notice that I put the boxes for task A and B on the left-hand side. That's because generally, network diagrams for a critical path go from left to right. Putting these 2 boxes on the left-hand side just leaves me enough room for the rest of the tasks. Next up, we have task C, with duration of 3 hours, and it must be preceded by A. So we do our first step, put a box here with a C and a 3 in it, must be preceded by A, so we just put an arrow in the box with A in it and the box with C in it. Next, we have task D with a duration of 2 hours. Task D must be preceded by task A, so we'll put a box here with a D and a 2 in it, and then we draw an arrow from task A to task D. Next, we have task
And
E.
the location of those doesn't really matter. You could have done
Task
C
E
on
must be
top.
preceded by task C, so we put a box here, and then we put an arrow from task C to task E. Next, we have task F with a duration of 5 hours, and it must be preceded by E, so we put a box here, an F and a 5 in it, then we put an arrow from task E to task F. Then we have task G with a duration of 6 hours. Task G must be preceded by task C. So we put a box here with a G and a 6 in it, then an arrow from task C to task G. Next we have task H with a duration of 9 hours, and task H must be preceded by tasks B and C. So we'll put a box with an 8 and a 9 in it. Since there's 2 tasks that must be preceded by, we'll put an arrow from task B to task H, and another arrow from task C to task H. Next we have task I with a duration of 2 hours, and task I must be preceded by tasks G and H. So we'll put a box here with an I and a 2 in it. So we'll put an arrow from task G to task I, and an arrow from task H to task I. Second to last, we have task J with a duration of 7 hours, and it must be preceded by task F. So we'll put a box here, and then an arrow from task F to task J. Finally, we have task K with a duration of 3 hours. Task K must be preceded by task D, I, and J. So we'll put a box just at the end here since it's the last task. And then we'll put an arrow from task D to K, and an arrow from task I to K, and then an arrow from task J to K. And that's your network diagram. When you first make your network diagram, it might not look quite as neat as this, but as long as you can clearly see which task the arrows are going from and to, as well as the duration of each task, then you won't lose any marks.
Okay. So, quite simple, right? You're just going to take the task and its duration. Now later we're going to learn about what to do with those other 4 boxes. They also play an important role in these. But for this thing, what we're going to do is I want you to go to your OneNote and look at that practice assessment that we have there, and I just want you to practice drawing the diagram. And like he said, it might not be as neat as his, but it can be if you'll just take the time to stop and think about which things are leading to which things, right? 1 or 2 of them is clearly going to be at the start. They have no precedence, no things that have to be started. And then the others are going to lead off of it. So you can look at the chart beforehand and see, oh, these 3 need to be stacked, or this one's going to be the very last task, etc. Okay? So we're just going to work on that and practice making some of those.